Hey, thanks so much. It's really good to be here. Speaking at JSWORLD Conference USA. Today I'll be speaking to you all about building modern modular web applications, and it sounds pretty out of this world, I hope. And this talk will be demystifying the concept of this. Before we get into that, a bit about myself. My name is Daniel Phiri. I'm a developer advocate at Strappy, and I DJ on Mixcloud. You can find me almost anywhere on the internet as Malgamviz. If you would like to reach out, say hi, ask questions after this talk, that's how you can find me on Twitter, to be specific. So, just as a warning to everyone, there'll be a bunch of Lego references, as someone recently made me watch the Lego movie, so enjoy. Great. If you'd like the resources, like the slides that I'm presenting right now, this is a link to them if you'd like to have a look and go through them as I am giving the talk. This link will help you with that. And let's get into our talk. So, modern modular applications and building them, of course. So, an overview of today and what we'll cover. We'll go through a content workflow overview. We'll look at where that falls short and look at more room for improvement. We'll look at my idea of a modular web application, and then we'll get into Strappy, which enables this modular way of building applications. We built this project with Nuxt, so we'll get into how we implemented that, and then we'll end the talk and hopefully you all have something really nice to take away. So let's get into it. Content workflow overview. Content is a lot of things, and when people think about it, they mostly think blogs or articles, but it's more than that. And I think the modern and the newer platforms like TikTok and Clubhouse, for example, are really showing that content can be way more than just words. So it's blogs and event sites and portfolio sites and streaming sites and e-commerce sites, and there's so much more. Content is all over. However, content creation isn't the most efficient thing. As you can see, the Lego says everything is not awesome. And content changes, content is fluid, content is not static. So why should our web applications be? This isn't bashing Jamstack. You can use this modular concept on Jamstack applications, as we'll find out now. But the concept of static here is your content shouldn't stay the same or be too hard to change or have too many people come into place to change it. I think anyone and everyone should be able to provide really good experiences, even beyond the web, using content. And even though this is focused on the web, it does help give you that overall idea of how you should approach giving people better experiences. So let's get into that. This is what a usual workflow looks like for a content-based website. So we have the developer team and the content team talking to each other. And then the development team goes ahead and builds a web app. The content team then adds content, to your CMS, and that CMS delivers content to the web app, and then that web app gives and is used by the end users, of course. Now, when we want to make a change, we want to add, let's say, a card to this website or a carousel, for example. The content team talks to the developer team. The developer team is like, okay, sure, we'll do it. So they go ahead, make that change to the web app. Then the content team adds more content for this carousel to the CMS. And then if they need another change, it's the same thing. And it's the same thing. It's a lot. And it leaves a lot of developers feeling like this. But it also leaves content managers feeling just as bad, because they don't want to ping you for every single thing. They really want the creative freedom to give end users the web experiences that they deserve. And as I've been talking to more people about the concept of modular web applications, one thing I've found out is agencies, for example, want to leave their clients really happy. If you can hand off a project and have that project do more and spend less hours, it's a plus for the agency and the client because they can extend the use case of something that was delivered to them. And we'll see how that works as we go deeper into this talk. So let's look at room for improvement. We went into our workflow. We looked at who's upset and who benefits from improving such a workflow. Now let's look for where we can actually improve this workflow. So there's a few things that aren't as good as they could be. We definitely have much less velocity in terms of ideation to getting something to your end users. There was lots of redesigns. I think we all noticed that the back and forth between the development team and the content team, and lots of redevelopment that comes from these redesigns, and probably too many meetings for everyone. And I think we've all learned that certain things should not be meetings. And hopefully this helps with that. So let's crash that system. Let's do that. Let's look at my idea of modern modular content, or rather modern modular web apps. So what is my modular creation? Spoilers, it's built with Strapi dynamic zones. So dynamic zones are a feature in Strapi that lets you pick out pre-made components and then place them in your content on the fly. So you have a carousel, you have a card component, you have a paragraph component, you have a CTA component. On the fly in your editor, you can place those wherever you need to in your content. And should you build your web applications a certain way, which is what I'll be talking to you about, you can sort of dynamically build web pages and websites that way. So let's get into this. But before we do, let's talk about a tweet. A few months ago, I tweeted that I was going to do something I haven't done in a while, which is build in public. And I'll read this tweet. I said, I've been thinking about Strapi and Nuxt.js, particularly their dynamic zones and dynamic pages, respectively. Theoretically, I can use both to sort of generate web pages as I want to, basically. And I got a lot of responses, positive responses, of course. People were saying they've done this before and it really works well, and it's worked really well for them. Other people said they've done this for their marketing sites, and even offered to help, which is amazing. For me, this was confirmation of the idea. Modern modular applications are something that is actually useful to a lot of people. And in a lot more conversations, even outside this Twitter sphere, many people have confirmed to me, many people in agencies, many people in marketing teams, that this is something they use. And it is something that we use ourselves at Strapi. So let's look at how this, let's look at the architecture of a solution like this. So you have your front-end application with a couple front-end components. This could be a carousel component, a card component, a paragraph component, a CTA component. And then you have, because we're using Nuxt, of course, dynamic pages. And then on the other hand, you have a Strapi application. You have a page universals. So you have a universals collection type, which stores all your pages. And in that collection type, you have a dynamic zone where you can place existing components that match the front end components. So what does this look like in terms of dynamically building pages and creating layouts in those pages? Whenever we add something to our Strapi app, let's say we add a CTA component in our Strapi app, that will be displayed, the same component will be displayed on our front end and on our Nuxt front end. So when we add content and details to our CTA component in Strapi, the actual design in the front end will show up and will be populated with the data that we put into Strapi. We can do the same thing for a paragraph component. We add a paragraph component in Strapi, we get one in the front end. And when I demo this, this will be much, much clearer. But this is what the architecture looks like. Now let's get into the workflow that this modular approach gives us. So as usual, we have our developer team and our content team talk to each other. And then the development team, of course, now in this case, goes and builds a web application with a bunch of components that they already discussed. So we have all the components that the content team might need, because we had that discussion between the developer team and the content team. The developers go ahead and build such an application, even though the first iteration of the website doesn't use all those components. They still exist in the front end. And then the content team, of course, goes and adds content to your CMS. In this case, that's Strapi. Your CMS delivers that to your web app, and then from your web app, your end users use your application. Now, changes need to happen. Our existing website, let's say, has a paragraph and a CTA. Maybe our content team wants to add another carousel. So what happens next? All they need to do now is go into your CMS and add a carousel. And they keep adding what they need, because your web app can take it and your developers built it. And the way you built your application in this modular manner enables this quick development process where people can build out web pages based off components that have been designed already and content that has been planned for already. So it's a really, really cool approach. Now, I've talked about Strapi. I think not many people might know it, or for those who don't know it, let me just give you a really quick 101 introduction to Strapi and what it is. So Strapi is a headless CMS. It is open source under the MIT license on GitHub. It's customizable. It is self-hosted. It is 100% JavaScript, and it has a really cool plugin system. Part of that plugin system is GraphQL support. So we do have GraphQL support in Strapi through that plugin. And this is just like an overview of what Strapi is. Headless might be a new concept for some people. So let's get into what headless means. Headless means you detach the front end, which is usually referred to as the head, from the back end. And in this case, we have our content in our CMS, and we can deliver that to multiple front ends via an API. So it's mobile devices. It could be websites, web servers. It could be IoT devices or smartware and smartwatches. So really, any device that can make an HTTP call, we can deliver. And that is what a headless CMS is. If you'd like to get started with Strapi, all you have to do is run yarn create Strapi app and give yourself a project name. If you don't want to start from scratch, we have really cool starters for different front-end frameworks and different use cases, corporate blogs, corporate sites, e-commerce websites, catalogs. So go to strapi.io/starters and you'll find something that could suit your needs. Now let's talk about our Nuxt implementation. Great. So we start out the usual way everyone does when using Nuxt.js with your default starter. We have this beautiful front end Nuxt project. So how do we get from this to this idea that I'm introducing to everyone? So we want to do a couple things. We want to create our front end components, of course, and we want to get Strapi connected to Nuxt so that the two can communicate. Nuxt can pull data from Strapi. And then we want to implement Nuxt dynamic pages, of course. And then we need to add a dynamic zone to our project. So we want to create components. At the moment, the front-end application has these components in its backend. We have cards, we have a CTA, we have a feature section, we have a header banner, we have a hero, we have our paragraph, and we have image text. Logo is default in your Nuxt application, and our nav bar is present on every page. So it isn't necessarily part of this modular building. So we have our front-end components created. I designed them and I got them and built them using Tailwind CSS and you can check the resources for a link to the repo if you want to clone this and try it out yourself. And then next, we need to get Strapi and Nuxt connected. We use Strapi's GraphQL API. And part of using that means we need to install a couple packages in our front end. So this is the Apollo library for Nuxt.js, and then we install GraphQL tag too. And then we have to do something really interesting. Because of the way dynamic zones are represented in Strapi, we get back union type, which gives us a problem of making heuristic queries. I have a blog post in the resources which dives into this problem deeper, but this is the configuration file that lets us query dynamic zones from Strapi without any problems. And then this is us creating a dynamic page. At the top there, you can see this is called _slug.js. And what that tells Nuxt is that this is a dynamic page whose URL changes depending on logic that you can implement in your front end. For me, this is data I'm pulling from Strapi, so I always name my pages a certain thing, and whatever I name my pages will become the name of this slug. So that's how Nuxt dynamic pages work. And then in the between the template tags here, you can see we have this section where we have a couple components, and we render our hero component, our feature section, and a paragraph component, and our CTA component, depending on whether we have those types as a response from our GraphQL query. We pass in the data here into the component, and then that is how we render that data. And then this is just sort of our dynamic zone. It's a condition. If this data exists from Strapi, then pass that data into the component and render it. If it doesn't, basically do nothing. So let's actually demo this. Let's look at how this works in a real application. So let's just switch over to my browser. We have a web page here with a couple cards, some description. Don't mind the text, it's all random copy. So if we go to About, we have this About page which is powered by Strapi. And then let's actually go into our Strapi admin. So this is what your Strapi admin looks like. And on the left here, we have the universals collection type that I mentioned. If we look at the About page, we have the slug, which gives which tells Nuxt what the URL of our page should be. And then we have all these details that exist or that we can enter. So let's go back to universals and let's add a new page. So we want to name this page testimonials. Testimonials, great. And our slug is automatically generated. So now our page will be whatever our website URL is /testimonials. And then here we have this add page builder, and then this is what we use to sort of implement this modular concept in Strapi. We click that, and then we see a bunch of components that we have access to. So let's go ahead and add a hero for this page. So our mainline one should say, let's hear. Line 2 should say, from the people in the company. We'll add a couple hero texts, and then we'll have like a description that says testimonials from the people who built the product. Awesome. So we've added a hero component to our web page. let's go ahead and add actual testimonials. And this should probably say something like, this is such a great company. And then do we want this to be a quote? Yes. And then this should probably be from Stan, who is a dev. And then let's add something else. Let's add another paragraph. I wish I joined much earlier. This is from Sarah, who is a VP. And yeah, let's leave it as this for now. We'll save our work and publish our work, and then when we go back to our home and refresh this page, we have testimonials appearing here. Should have capitalized that, but that's fine. And when we go to testimonials, we see this, yeah, we should have added an image, but that's fine. We see exactly what we typed out, and we see the quotes that we just put in. We did not enable something. We did not enable the quote there, so that's not appearing. And let's give this name testimonials with capital T. Great, so that's saved. And if we go back and refresh, that is fixed, and we should see Sarah's quote, the VP. Awesome. That's working. Now let's try and add another page. Go back to universals, and maybe we can call this marketing, for example. And so maybe we want to add a feature section, something about our product. How am I doing for time? I think I'm almost good. Something about the product, and then this feature section should be called maybe what we're about. Excuse me, it doesn't have to make sense, but it's there. And then feature description, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Whole wheat sliced bread. And we can add like a CTA just for fun. So maybe join our webinar with a couple buttons. So this should say please, and what do we name these? Join, and then maybe join again. Yeah, we'll save this and publish it, of course. And let's go back to our page, go back home and refresh this. Then we have a marketing page here that shows up. So we have what we're about, something about the product is the best thing since sliced bread. So please join our webinar, join with buttons. And if we wanted, we could add our URL. But basically, we have all these web pages that we just built out using Strapi. And I think this is a pretty cool concept. So I'm a bit short of time, so back to the slides. I'm very happy about that demo. Things did not explode. But most people would say we have a problem here. There's so many options. Nuxt has SSR, SPA, and static modes. What and how do you want to do things? I guess with SSR and SPA modes, everything works really well. But what about static modes? Is everything cancelled? Suspense? No. We have a solution. Webhooks. Strapi does support webhooks, so whenever there's content added, you can sort of have a webhook triggered, and then that can maybe trigger a build on a service like Netlify or Vercel or Gatsby. So depending on whatever you're using, that is what happens, and everything is awesome again. So again, if you'd like some resources, go to strapi.next.js.org, have a look at that, and let's just look at a few things. I think this is pretty cool, and it definitely increases team velocity. I definitely also believe that there's way more use cases than the one I just demoed. So if you have one that you'd like to try out, please go ahead and share that if you can. If you would like to try this out, you can if you want to. There's a link to the repo in the resources, which I'll be sharing again in a few slides. And it works for static sites also. So that's so cool. Again, resources bit.ly/strappydzone. Thank you so much. I have been Daniel, and I hope, like I said at the beginning, that this talk has added some value for you. Thank you.